Remember how I said Lana Wachowski was a very intelligent writer and director? Well, I'm not really sure what to think about that anymore. I mean, this wasn't a terrible movie, but there were some very, very odd and questionable choices that were made in this movie, and some that I don't really completely understand. But I'll just get more in depth into it anyway. Okay, so this is my spoiler review for The Matrix Resurrections. So here we go. Now, this was a long and hefty movie with a lot of plot points in it, so forgive me if I forget a few or don't get all of them right, because I'm still processing the movie. And so anyway, it starts, the very first scene is very similar to the way the first Matrix starts. It kind of all starts the same way. It kind of starts with that blinking dot on the side of the screen that types into a phone tracing program, and you have all the numbers coming up on the screen, and it goes through the 0 and through the Matrix code, just like that. And it kind of caught me by surprise, because they were really, like, shot for shot, they were going like doing the exact same thing as the first scene in the original Matrix. Like the shot going down the billboard on the side of the hotel, the agent showing up. But then it's revealed that we focus on this new character, kind of blue-haired girl called Bugs. Not Bugs Bunny, but Bugs. And they think they have found Trinity in that scene, but they realise that it's not Trinity, or it's at least not what they expected Trinity to be, because she can't properly fight off these agents. But anyway, they escape, they get out, and it focuses on Neo, who is once again called Thomas Anderson, and he is programming, he's no longer at Metacortex, the computer programming company from the original film, but instead he is now a game designer developing a game based exactly off the original Matrix film. Now, one of the first things about this scene that caught me off guard, and I thought about a bit later in the movie, is that at this point Thomas doesn't remember that he was Neo, that he was the one in the original trilogy, yet he has all this original Matrix paraphernalia, like little action figures of Neo and Trinity from the 1999 film and the early 2000s sequels, and they're there in the movie, and yet he doesn't remember that he was this character. But anyway, a little bit later, it's revealed that he sees a therapist, and he talks to him about his problems, that he doesn't really seem to know what's real anymore, or like he seems to be having these strange visions that he doesn't understand. Like it's almost like he feels like he has this past life that he doesn't know about. But his therapist just says that he just has mental issues and he has to push through it, just like any therapist would tell you. And he is medicating Neo with these pills, but they are blue pills, just like the blue pill in the first Matrix. And the more he takes these pills, the more he doesn't really seem to trust that these pills are actually helping him, or what they're even supposed to do, really. I mean, the reason that he's even seeing the therapist at all is that the therapist shows the audience, it tells the audience that Neo, in the not too distant past, tried to commit suicide and jump off a building. And in a later scene, he almost tries to do that again, but before he does, Bugs comes in and addresses him as Neo. Still, Neo doesn't really know what she's talking about, and takes her with her to meet another character. Actually, no. What happens is that the building that Neo is in, that he works in, is being evacuated, and he gets a text on his phone. Funnily enough, Neo's text is blue, so he's trying to, like, you know, symbolize that he is a blue pill. And this mysterious character tells him to meet him in the bathroom. And I was really confused about this character because he's supposed to be Morpheus, though it's obviously not Lawrence Fishburne, because I guess, for one thing, they weren't able to cast Lawrence Fishburne in this film for some reason, or two, they didn't want to. But this person who addresses himself as Morpheus is actually not a real person. He is a sentient program, a lot like Agent Smith and the Oracle in the original movies. But he's on Neo's side, and he wants to help Neo rediscover who he is. And he rather forcibly offers Neo the red pill. Again, they also phones. They no longer use phones in this Matrix movie. They don't use the phones to exit the Matrix. They use mirrors, and like the mirrors are kind of like the same as what you would see in Super Mario 64 when you jump into the picture and you are in that world. They use mirrors to teleport themselves from different parts of the Matrix and to enter and exit the Matrix. So it's a good thing that they kind of did away with the phones, because the payphones are still kind of obsolete now. I mean, my city still has payphones, and the payphones are free, but I digress. So now they are on this Shinkansen bullet train, supposedly in Japan, Matrix Japan, and Morpheus approaches Neo again with the red pill again, and this time he actually takes it. And he's very quickly, not like the scene in the original Matrix where he's like touching the mirror and he's getting consumed and he screams, but he just jumps through another mirror and he instantly wakes up in the pod again. But he realizes that he's not where he was before with all the rest of humanity in these giant towers, but there's only one pod opposite him. And he seems to know right away that is Trinity. He met Trinity a little bit earlier in the film, in this coffee shop scene, that they don't really know each other, but they establish that there is some connection that has pulled them together. And Neo slowly starts to remember who Trinity is. And once he is back on a ship, it's not the Nebuchadnezzar, it's a different ship with a different crew. And a different, Tank still isn't in this one, but, you know. We'll give Marcus Chong his own space. So Neo now is kind of woken up to who he is again, and he reacquaints himself. Well, he meets new people on this new ship, meets a new crew, and something that is revealed in this film is that some of the machines are now on the human side, just like the programs in the original Matrix movies, but like actual machines. They have a few pet machines. They have this little tiny one that kind of crawls around. It's kind of funny. And they go to this new city that's not Zion. I think it's called like Eon or something. I think the element that the movie did best at was really opening up the real world in the Matrix that the previous movies didn't really do. I mean, the CGI and special effects for this location of the real world was a lot more detailed, a lot more fleshed out, and a lot more I wouldn't say realistic, but like a lot more interesting than what it was in the previous films. There was a lot more thought put into it compared to the first three films. So Neo goes to Aeon, or whatever the hell it's called, and meets an old friend there. Niobe from The Matrix Reloaded is now kind of like the prime governor of Aeon, and they have discovered how to get sentient programs in the Matrix to walk around in the real world by using like nanotechnology or something. And they also were able to grow fruit and grow real plants from genetic matrix code in the Matrix. I'm not really sure how that's supposed to work, but it's interesting to say the least that they could get like basically just computer code and be able to like reverse engineer it to grow crops and plants in the real world. And anyway, Neo explains to Niobe that he has to bring Trinity back. He needs to get Trinity out of the Matrix. But Niobe tells Neo that that might not be the best choice because she might be too attached to the Matrix. She might not want to leave, or she might enjoy her life as it is in the Matrix. And she also when she meets Neo, she also discovers that Bugs and her crew did something kind of illegal, that pulling Neo out of the Matrix in that specific pod in that location could have like greatly endangered the existence of Aeon and its people. And Niobe kind of like scolds Bugs for doing that and demotes her of her license to run the ship. But anyway, a bit later they Bugs meets Neo again and still flying the ship, and it basically tells Neo that they're going to save Trinity. But yeah, the plot goes on, but I think the main thing I want to talk about, that this was just a really weird movie. I mean, like, not in the way that even the original Matrix movies were. That just a lot of, it was so strange, very strange choices, very some strange acting. The train man from Revolutions makes a reappearance in one scene, and his performance is so ham-fisted and so ludicrously over the top that it's unbelievable as acting. It falls completely flat, and it was there were several moments that kind of made me cringe a bit. There are several embarrassing moments in this movie. I mean, not too many of them. And also the action, I mean, like, I know, like, the trademark of the Matrix is kind of like the slow motion effects and the, of course, the bullet time, which all looks awesome. But in this movie, like, every time somebody gets hit, it's like this artificial float away that looks really shoddy and really out of place. I mean, like, they don't try to go for the bullet time, slow motion spinny effect that they did with the original movies. They just really want to like, kind of like just hit people, have everybody float around and artificially float backwards. And I mean, I guess it is the Matrix, so it's supposed to look artificial. But it was kind of like the uncanny valley of like thinking that this was a good effect or it was a bad effect. I couldn't really decide either way whether it looked good or it looked bad. It's just somewhere straight in the middle for me. Because, I mean, the special effects aren't bad per se. As I said before, the CGI work and kind of artistry that was put into the look and the feel of the real world in this movie was really well done. But yet, there really wasn't anything groundbreaking about it either. I mean, like, the bullet time effect for 1999 was such a groundbreaking effect, and it was practical, it wasn't CG, it was done with real cameras, and real camera motion and real people. The only thing that was CG was the background. And The Matrix Reloaded added on this with the Burly Brawl, and I mean, something that another YouTube reviewer, Chris Sutman, likes to say is that in that movie they kind of look like floaty balloon people, but that was 2003, so you can let that slide. But this is 2021, and we still have people floating around in this movie kind of like balloon people, and it still looks fake and unconvincing. But I mean, and also there was moments in this movie where when Neo gets confused, it's like that really stuttery, like low frame, slow motion shot where he's like wobbling around like this, and every time that effect came on screen, it just looked stupid. It looked quite ridiculous and kind of laughably funny of why you would put that in this movie. I mean, it's like something you would see in like a cheesy episode of the 90s Goosebumps show, not in a 2021 Wachowski brothers film. Another character that made a previous appearance in The Matrix Revolutions is Sati, who was the small Indian girl in the Train Man program that Neo was stuck in the first like 20 minutes of that movie. Now she's all grown up, and she was probably was probably one of the best actors in the film. Not like knocking on Keanu Reeves or the other ones, but she played a good part in this movie. But anyway, the main villain is revealed to be the analyst, who is actually was Neo's therapist, but was actually just trying to keep him subdued and trying to make him forget who he really was. And his boss at the video game company that he works is revealed to be a new version of Agent Smith, but not played by Hugo Weaving. It's played by a different actor. But things get pretty messy at this point. They try and free Trinity, but the analyst stops Neo. But kind of like Smith kind of becomes an ally in the scene because he stops the analyst and helps Trinity get free, because Smith and Neo have kind of a strange little relationship like each other, and in this scenario Smith helps Neo. Neo goes back to the coffee shop to try and convince Trinity to get out of the Matrix. Trinity's family comes and tries to pull her back, but Trinity says she no longer wants to be called Tiffany, that she fucking hates that name, and she escapes with Neo in a motorcycle chase. And basically the people of the Matrix basically turn into zombies, controlled by the machine, just like running zombies, trying to stop the cars, and also like the people are controlled to suicide bomb out of their apartment windows and just like splatter on the ground, but there's no blood, they just like splatter into Matrix code and disintegrate. And then there was also a pretty funny moment. I'm not sure if people found this funny or really cringe. I found it to be a bit cringe, but Neo tries to take off, like in Matrix Reloaded, where the ground bends beneath his feet, but he just goes up like 2 feet. He just lands back on his feet again. It's like, yeah, I can't do that anymore. And that was kind of like the moment of the movie where like everyone laughed. There was a few bits and pieces throughout the movie where a couple of people were chuckling, but that was the one real moment where everyone was laughing, even if that joke was delivered well or not. You'd be the judge of that. Anyway, the movie kind of climaxes with Neo and Trinity jumping off a tall building and expecting Neo to start flying, but they start falling and they realise that Trinity actually now miraculously, for no real explained reason, she can now fly too. And they escape, they fly back to the analyst's house, I guess, and they deliver this really cheesy scene. Basically, Trinity beats the shit out of the analyst, and then the analyst like insults Trinity for being a girl, and Trinity like slits his throat. But then because he's a program, it just regenerates. And like Trinity also says like, "You control children." Just like, I can't forgive you for that. You control children. Neo and Trinity basically explain that that they will kill him if he tries to take control of the Matrix again, and they fly off. And probably the worst decision of this movie was to end with like an updated rendition of Wake Up from Rage Against the Machine. I mean, you could think of, they already used that for the original Matrix. You could like think of any song, any Rage Against the Machine song, or any other song that wasn't that song to be the ending song of this movie, but they just decided to use that song again. And it's infinitely worse than the Rage Against the Machine 1992 version. But anyway, that is The Matrix Resurrections, and it has a lot of flaws, but I still had an enjoyable time with it. I thought it was a good movie. There's a lot that's wrong with it, but there's quite a lot that is to be admired about as well. I didn't walk out of the theatre hating this movie or thinking it was an absolute disgrace or an abomination. It was fine. It was weird but fine, and I'll probably have to think about it and watch it a few more times. But for me, it kind of sits on a 6.5 out of 10 for me. Anyway, that's my spoiler review of The Matrix Resurrections, and take care.